Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. I am Bryson Carver, as always. Got a great show for y'all tonight. Hard Knocks the other day, Tuesday night, as always, on HBO. And, it further convinced me, like what I've said on this show or what I said during the Dak contract negotiations, at least this offseason, that I thought he should have left. I'll lead the show off with that. Also, Trevor Lawrence, it's looking to be a long year for my man out of Clemson after some of the things you're hearing about the Jacksonville Jaguars from inside the organization. And heck, just when you look at their schedule and when you watched them in the preseason, it has not been it has been tough sledding for Trevor Lawrence. So stuff to get into there. Also, Sony Michel traded to the Los Angeles Rams. I'll get into that and why that is absolutely huge for the Los Angeles Rams going forward. I'll get into that later in the show. Mac Jones, hey, give the kid credit. He's showing up. Played great in practice the other day. Even got a little compliment from Bill Belichick. I'll be a little more specific about that. Kind of proves what I was saying about the whole Cam Newton thing, though, right on Monday. Get into that later in the show. As well as Teddy Bridgewater beating out Drew Lock. It says more to me about Drew Lock than it does about Teddy Bridgewater. A lot to get into on the show. First, let me this is tough. Let me address something real quick. On Carving It Up, I keep it real with y'all. That's what I do. I think this show would be a complete joke if I didn't. I just want to extend my thoughts and my prayers with all those in Afghanistan right now. We all know what's going on there with the Taliban. There was an attack earlier today. 12 died. Just want to extend my prayers to their families. And listen, I'm as heartbroken as I'm sure all of y'all are. In some ways, I think as many of y'all are as well, a little pissed off. But again, just heartbroken for those that have been lost. And just take a little time today, whenever you get some free time, whatever, to think about those who we've lost and especially their families and loved ones who are grieving right now. And but that's a lot of what this sports is about. What the show's about. Sorry, I tripped over my words a little bit. That's a lot what this show's about, is when there's, as I've heard one say, when the fit hits the shan, sports and music are the great unifiers. And they're also one of the great distractions to get our minds away from what's going on in the world. And so that's what I'm going to try and do today. Again, loaded show, a lot of football to talk about. The NFL kicks off 2 weeks from tonight. And so certainly a lot to get into, but just thoughts and prayers to those who've been affected. Also want to put up a early comment from my man, Ryan Flowers, Clutch Sports Talk. He says, I like the picture behind you. I appreciate that, man. Again, a little new look for Carving It Up. Got Steph right there. Matter of fact, let me just remove this Carving It Up logo just so it looks a little better. There we go. Remove the Steph logo, and that's there you go. So let's another comment here, by the way, by Ryan. Terrible day for our country and for all the Afghans who lost their lives. Prayer hands. For those of you that don't know out there, my man Ryan served, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan, please correct me if I'm wrong, served in the Navy. So just want to thank him for his service. And again, to all those who've given everything for this great land. So thank you, Ryan, and thank you to all those who have served. Philly Cheese Chenault, Philip, my man, what's up? How you doing? Great to see you here in the comments. Ryan says both conflicts, Iraq and Afghanistan. So there you go right there. Thank you again, Ryan, for what you've done. Here we go. Dallas Cowboys start the show. Hard Knocks aired Tuesday night. This has been one heck of a Hard Knocks. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I normally don't watch Hard Knocks every year. I watch the clips. I go to YouTube. You know, I see what the national media is saying about it. But this year, I'm like, you know what? My Cowboys are on it. My team's on it. I gotta watch it. There's too many storylines. There's the Dak injury, and then the Dak second injury, which became a bigger story than the initial one. And the initial one was he split his ankle in half against the New York Giants 11 months ago. Really, 10 and a half months ago, if we want to be exact. Ryan says Zeke is a weirdo. He's something, man. He is. He's a character. But you know what? I will say this about Ezekiel Elliott: the maturity. He's gone leaps and bounds from where he was when he first came into the NFL. No question about it. So Zeke's been great. I've absolutely loved Zeke on Hard Knocks. So he's been fun. But I mean, just storylines everywhere. Mike McCarthy going into his second year, a defense which was just atrocious last year, who hired Dan Quinn, drafted Micah Parsons, who I loved out of college, out of Penn State in the draft. People forget about Micah Parsons, by the way. He was projected after the 2019 season. Had he played in 2020, he ended up opting out due to COVID, that he would be a top 5 pick. So he's top 5 talent, but it's kind of the, I wouldn't say recency bias, but hey, we didn't see him play for a while. It's kind of the Trey Lance thing. But Micah Parsons has looked great in the preseason. Coaches love what he's doing in camp. So there's a lot going on here. And to this point, we've seen not that much Jerry Jones. But my gut told me, wait, it's coming. Jerry Jones is not going to have his team on Hard Knocks. Heck, it was his decision to have the team on Hard Knocks. He's not just going to sit back and say, let the players have all the spotlight, or Mike McCarthy, or even the fans, and nope. Episode 3 the other day started with a full drone shot. It was amazing, by the way. It's on YouTube. You can go check it out. The drone coming through the star is unbelievable. First of all, it shows you how exquisite, if you will, the star is, the practice facility, for those of you that don't know, of the Dallas Cowboys. Whoever flew that drone, man, give them an Emmy. I mean, that was phenomenal. That was a drone shot of 2021, as far as I'm concerned. That was amazing. But you saw the shots of Jerry. You know, he's in this helicopter, and they go pick up Steven, and they're flying to the game, and he's saying, that stadium looks better 12 years after we opened it as when we opened it back in 2009. It's just, the classic Jerry Jones, and he's up in the broadcast, the owner's booth. Talking about he was, when CeeDee Lamb made a play, he was like, boy, he is one heck of a weapon. And he is the classic fan owner. Just stay in the city of Dallas, Mark Cuban. Now, Mark Cuban he's out there, but he's not as out there as public, if you will, as Jerry Jones. Jerry's the classic fan owner. What sells tickets? Ratings. I remember last year when the Dallas Cowboys were at least close to their credit, they fought back and gave themselves a shot to make the playoffs in Week 17 after a horrible start to the season. But once the NFL figured out, okay, the Cowboys they're just not interesting right now. Dak's out, and Zeke's playing horribly, and Ben DiNucci and Garrett Gilbert and Andy Dalton's been average at best. And so they took the third to last game of the season, Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers, who were also out of the playoffs at that point. They took them off Sunday Night Football and just put them in the 1 o'clock spot. That drove Jerry nuts. Because Jerry's all about the ratings. He's all about attention. If you put Jerry in a lie detector, I know he gets emotional, he gets teary-eyed, and I'm not doubting that Jerry Jones wants another Super Bowl. I'm not doubting that for a second. But if you had to put Jerry in a lie detector to say, deep down, would you rather your team be the most talked about but doesn't win, or kind of boring, but wins championships. Because we know the Dallas Cowboys, the Patriots for 20 years had the greatest dynasty in NFL history. They were kind of boring, if we're being honest. They weren't the Kansas City Chiefs. The one year the Patriots were really, really interesting, like offensively at least. They had the greatest quarterback all the time. Still kind of boring. Was 2007 when it was Tom Brady and Randy Moss. Back in 2007, they went undefeated through the first 18 games, as we all know, fell short against the underdog New York Giants 17-14 in Super Bowl 42. So we know that happened. But the Patriots, for the majority of that dynasty, wasn't necessarily must-win TV. It was must-win TV must-see TV, because they were winning. But if the Patriots were a perennial wild card team and maybe, won some playoff games here and there, they might have even made a Super Bowl, nobody would have watched the New England Patriots. Nobody. Dallas, it don't matter. Those championship teams, especially in the 90s, and I wasn't even around for the 90s, but I've seen the documentaries. I know. Jerry Jones don't want to win a championship if it ain't flashy. And that's the problem. I was more critical than anybody of Jerry Jones this offseason, and the last two for that matter, when Dak didn't get an extension. I said, Jerry, do you have any better ideas? Well, you don't want to pay him $40 million. Well, again, you want to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick? Ryan Fitzpatrick is the sole reason I don't believe the Washington football team is going to make the playoffs this season. Forget the division. I don't think they're winning the playoffs. Their defense is lights out. They've got weapons. Terry McLaurin. Antonio Gibson is crazy underrated. I'd draft him in fantasy if I were you. Offensive line's good. Quarterback, it was kind of a carousel last year. Yeah, Kyle Allen and Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith, and the guy who started their playoff game was Taylor Heineke. Almost beat Tampa Bay, to his credit. And so what I'm thinking is, okay, Alex Smith retires. Now they're going to go get somebody in the draft that can help them contend or trade for somebody. Who knows? Aaron Rodgers, possibly. And obviously, that ship has sailed, at least for this offseason. It's a whole different story next year. Definitely want to stay tuned for that. But getting a guy in there, Justin Fields. Do you think Washington, the organization, the coaches, the players, the fans, you don't think there'd be that much more juice going into this season if you had Justin Fields as opposed to Fitzmagic, who's on his 9th team? Here's what it is. And so that's why I said about Jerry Jones, why aren't you signing Dak? You're talking about a guy who's got the 6th highest passer rating in NFL history. Talking about a guy who's tied with Russell Wilson since he came into the league, with the most games of a passer rating over 100. Tied with Russell Wilson. He's over Tom Brady. He's over Aaron Rodgers. Over everybody. All the elite quarterbacks. Russ and Dak, right there. That was my criticism. And it's why this offseason I said, Dak, I think he is good enough to get him one. I do. Because Dak's going to be here for the foreseeable future. Maybe even beyond that. Probably will sign multiple deals to stay with the Dallas Cowboys. And look, off the field, there is no brand better for you than quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Dak's got every endorsement. He's got 7-Eleven. He's got Sleep Number. He's got, I think he's got Coke now, Anheuser-Busch, Jordan brand. He's got every endorsement. It's great from off the field. And obviously, not going to criticize athletes for, care about the bottom line. Get your money. Okay? You only play so long. There's not that many careers where it's crazy that one guy, Tom Brady, is in year 22. That's not how most careers in life work. You only get so long. So get your money. But Dak seems to me like a guy who winning. That's all he cares about. I'm not that convinced that was what the only thing that Jerry Jones cares about. I mean, the Hunt family in Kansas City. Clark Hunt, the owner. Only times I've ever seen Clark Hunt with the team is when they're accepting the AFC Championship trophy or a couple of years ago, the Lombardi trophy. That's the only time I ever see Clark Hunt. And then I saw him with the team when they got their rings a year ago. That's it. Clark Hunt isn't doing interviews after games like he's a player or coach. He's not doing weekly radio interviews. You know, even a couple of years ago, think about Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. Ben Roethlisberger, some of his sound bites and quotes were kind of getting him in trouble a little bit and causing a little bit of a locker room divide when he make his weekly radio appearances in Pittsburgh. And so after a while, I was like, okay, I'm done. No more radio appearances for me. He had the self-awareness to recognize that. Jerry Jones at 78 going on 79 still doesn't have that, and I don't anticipate that changing. That's my issue. That's why I said Dak. San Francisco at the time needed a quarterback. The Saints, we still don't know if they have their quarterback. I like Winston, but who knows? Chicago Bears, good coaching staff. Well, they've got Fields now, but they didn't have Fields in February and March. Yeah, Dallas has the weapons. They always have the weapons. That's never an issue. They've had T.O., they've had Dez Bryant. Now they've got a trio of Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, who I think is going to have a massive year this year, and Michael Gallup, who's a great deep threat. They've always got weapons. But defense is usually in question. Coaching is almost always in question. Speaking of coaching, if you have not watched Hard Knocks, Mike McCarthy is Jason Garrett all over again, just without the long-term relationship. Like Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones are practically family, like the Jones family and Tony Romo. Okay? But if you watch Hard Knocks, you see the mic'd ups with Mike McCarthy and Stephen Jones, or even Mike McCarthy with Jerry. Jerry only hires puppet guys. Guys who will cater to him. Or guys who will let him have an input. I mean, Jerry Jones is in the coaches' meeting. They're showing the shots of the coaches' room where they're evaluating players. Guys who are trying to make the roster. The one Latino kid on the team. I think he's from Mexico. The one Mexican kid trying to make the team as an offensive lineman. Great story. Coaches are evaluating him. There sits Jerry Jones right with the coaches. There's an old saying, I believe it was from Warren Buffett. A's hire A's. B's hire C's. A's hire A's. B's hire C's. What does that mean? If you're an A, if you're the best at what you do, if your number one goal, whatever it may be, business, whether it be sports, whatever it is, if winning is the number one option, you will hire anybody to make sure that priority one is met and accomplished. If you're a B and you're not that confident in yourself, you hire C, somebody you can control. You have to be the smartest guy in the room. That's Jerry. And this is why you see on these debate shows, on these shows in the national media, you see the question popped up. Will the Dallas Cowboys ever win a Super Bowl if Jerry Jones is the owner? It's not just a fair question, it's a valid question. I have my doubts. Because if you have a meddling owner, yeah, the star looks great. It's beautiful. The drone shot, again, deserves an Emmy by itself. The star is nicer than most NFL stadiums. What did that do for the Cowboys last year? And the year before that? And the year before that? In the last quarter century? Absolutely nothing. Think about this. Since the Dallas Cowboys last won the Super Bowl, it was the 1995 season. They obviously won the Super Bowl in January of 1996 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's 16 teams in the NFC. Dallas is one of them. 13 of the 16 teams have made an NFC championship game since Dallas last won the Super Bowl. Who are the 3 teams that have not? Washington. You've seen their owner, Dan Snyder. Got all kinds of issues with him. The Detroit Lions. They're the epitome of dysfunction. Look at their coach. I've ridiculed their coach. He hasn't coached the game yet. And the Dallas Cowboys. It's as simple as that. A's hire A's. B's hire C's. And that's the biggest problem with the Dallas Cowboys. Is Jerry cares more about the brand. And give him credit because the brand is number one in all of sports. All across, not just this country, the whole wide world. The Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable sports franchise in the world. He's done great with that. Merchandise selling, again, the stadium, the practice facility in the stadium is just unbelievable. What has that done for them on the field? And so that's why it's now it's kind of like Ben Simmons. Like every summer we see him shooting threes, and it's like this is the year Ben Simmons is gonna start shooting and making threes at a high clip. It's like it's the same story. We know what we're getting from Ben Simmons. Same with Jerry Jones. Every training camp, he's getting emotional, talking about the good old days. This camp, he talked about the story with Barry Switzer when he hired Barry Switzer after he just fired Jimmy Johnson. And he was in the process of interviewing Barry Switzer and the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He said, "Where's Jimmy?" Jerry said, "I don't know. We're trying to hire you." He said, No, where's Jimmy? I want to get both of you in a room and figure out how you two blank this up. Jerry's always getting all sentimental about the good old days. You can have more good old days, Jerry. Step back. Okay? You don't have to be at the coaches' meetings. You don't have to do radio interviews. You don't have to, be in the locker room after games, after regular. I mean, we see owners in locker rooms, but only after big playoff wins or Super Bowl wins. We don't see owners in the locker room in week 6. Come on. This has always been my worry, and this has always been my number one concern with the Cowboys. Gerald Wayne Jones. Got a few comments here. Ryan says the way he was eating those sour arrowheads, Ryan was referring to Ezekiel Elliott, who I was talking about earlier. Dang, that was a long rant. I went 20 minutes straight on Jerry Jones. Just shows you how I feel about it. He said, the Star is a better facility than Allegiant Stadium here in Vegas. Folks, that's saying something because Allegiant Stadium, which is now in its second year hosting the Las Vegas Raiders, it is unbelievable. The Star is nicer. I agree with Ryan. Barry Grant Jr., All Even Podcast, my man. The Star is better than every facility ever constructed. Yeah, it is. No debates there. It is incredible. I mean, it's like, I don't even know what you compare it to. Nothing football related. It looks like you could have, you could have like the World's Fair there. I mean, it's amazing. And then he says, I'm not going to sit here and hear you bash Jerry and Jerry World, LOL. Turn in your card, sir. Well, I'll turn in my card after you turn in your Mets card. Because for the same reasons, Barry Grant Jr., that you trash the Mets, that's why I trash the Cowboys. Now, I'm not throwing any hats near any dumpsters. Not going to do that. Pay too much money for them hats. But listen, What have they given you for 25 years? 3 playoff wins. Just think about that. 3 playoff wins. At the age of 43, Tom Brady won 4 playoff games, 3 of them on the road. Against the Washington football team defense, against Drew Brees, against Aaron Rodgers, and finish it off by being a big part of a destruction of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's the best word I can find. Now, I get that's the GOAT, but in one postseason, at 43 years old, Tom Brady's won more playoff games than the Dallas Cowboys have in 25 years. Folks, what were you all doing 25 years ago? I don't know. I wasn't even here. I've never come close to seeing the Cowboys. Heck, not even hoist the Lombardi Trophy. Could you make an NFC Championship game? Could you do that? Is that too much to ask when 13 other teams in the NFC have made the NFC Championship game? The Buccaneers have done it, 3 times? They've been in the NFC Championship 3 times? It used to be called the Succaneers. At one point, they lost 26 straight regular season games or something insane. I mean, they were horrible back in the day. The Carolina Panthers have done it. The Saints, they were called the Aints back in the day before Drew Brees arrived. They've made 3 NFC Championship games. What else? Let's say in the NFC. The Giants not only made 2 conference championship games, they've won them both and beat Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl. The Eagles have been in multiple times. Obviously, we know what the Packers represent. The Bears have been in an NFC Championship game. The Vikings have been in an NFC Championship game. Going division by division here. The Falcons, the epitome of their choke city, man. If there is a way to lose the game that you've never seen before, don't worry. The Falcons will find a new way to lose. Whether it's letting an onside kick go, whether it's blowing a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl, they'll find a new way to lose. The Falcons will. They've made an NFC Championship game. Who else? I mean, am I missing anybody? Looking at the NFC East, NFC South, West. Okay, Seattle's made it. Arizona's made it. Arizona has made it an NFC Championship game. Okay? We all know what the 49ers represent. Seahawks. The Rams have done it. I'm pretty sure I covered all of them. I did. 3 teams in the NFC never made it. Dallas, Detroit, Washington. Anytime historically you're in the group with those 2, it's probably not for a very good reason. Barry says, okay, let's be fair, though. Tuna, I think you mean Tony, right? Tony Romo. Didn't get it done in Dallas. Romo was a good QB and couldn't get there. Dallas has had some bad luck and made bad decisions. But at least they're not the Bengals. Is that the standard now? Is that the standard? We're not the Cincinnati Bengals, at least. The team who hasn't won a playoff game in 25 years. Forget the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl in a quarter century. The Bengals haven't won a playoff game in the past quarter century. Man. He said Parcells. Parcells left. Why? Part of it might have been he was just ready to move on from coaching. At that age and stage of his life, he was ready to move on. By the way, a late happy birthday to Bill Parcells. Sunday, he turned 80, so a big happy birthday to Coach. But Bill Parcells, since the Cowboys won their last Super Bowl, he's been the only coach who Jerry couldn't control. He left after 3 years. He left after 3 years. After that, it's been Wade Phillips, who's a great defensive coordinator, bad head coach. Jason Garrett, don't make me relive the Garrett years. By the way, Garrett's a good coordinator, by the way. I'm not even going to, let's not poo-poo on him entirely. He's an excellent offensive coordinator with the New York Giants, and he was with the Cowboys when Wade Phillips was the head coach. But he can be controlled by Jerry. Mike McCarthy, he can be controlled by Jerry. My man Grady Edwards, shout out to him. He said, coming a little late to the podcast, what's the hype with Dallas this year? A good season for them will be a wild card exit. Well, Grady, based on the last 3 years, you would be correct. Missing the playoffs the last 2 years. Last year, badly. They were 6-10. Crap, they were in the NFC East. So, Washington was 7-9. But you're correct. Now, I do have them getting farther than the wild card game, to be fair. Now, Super Bowl, let's save that conversation for another day or another year, because I don't think that's in the cards for America's team this season. But there you go. That has got to be the unless the comments keep filing in, which, please, guys, I love this. I love the dialogue. That's got to be one of the longest rants I've ever had on one subject. Of course, it had to be for the Cowboys. Let's move on. Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence the other day was named QB1. Starting quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Doesn't shock anybody, obviously. I mean, we knew it was coming. We know potential-wise, we've seen few players in this league with this much talent, with this much upside, if you will. Sometimes that word can drive me crazy, but as far as just God-gifted talent, Trevor Lawrence, I've seen, heck, scouts have been doing this for decades. Mel Kiper, they've seen guys like this. They only come around ever so often. But you hear a report now, if I can pull it up here, you hear the report. Adam Jacksonville, according to Pete Prisco, who I assume is a reporter in Jacksonville, according to him, some Jaguars players already, quote, aren't thrilled with Urban Meyer's coaching techniques. Now, this could mean a lot of things. This could very well mean, listen, save for one Cinderella postseason run a few years back when Blake Bortles got the Jaguars to a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter of an AFC championship game against the greatest dynasty in the NFL, the New England Patriots, only to come up short. Outside of that, Jacksonville Jaguars have been a completely irrelevant franchise. By the way, that's another team that have made a conference championship before the Cowboys in the last 25. Just saying. But Jacksonville, we all know, does not have a culture of winning. Save for the Tom Coughlin years. And then save for that one magical year in 2017. This is not a winning organization. This could very well mean Urban's pushing them the way that Doug Marrone has it the last few years. That very well could be it. Who knows? But this is the same Urban Meyer who signed Tim Tebow. Didn't think I'd have to say that name on this show again, but signing Tim Tebow after nearly a decade out of the league, playing a completely foreign position to him. We all saw that worked out. We all saw how the Tim Tebow experience worked out. Looked about like that. This is the same guy who hired the former Iowa strength and conditioning coach and had to fire him days later because of the outrage, because of all the strength and conditioning guys you could have hired. You hired the dude from Iowa who had the adjective bully next to his name. He got fired from Iowa because players alleged he was a bully, in some cases racist, and you hire that guy to be your strength and conditioning head coaches of all the ones in college football and the NFL. You hire that guy? Read the room, Urban. Who knows? But what we do know is the Jaguars players, quote, are not thrilled with Urban Meyer's coaching. We've seen the 2 preseason games that Jacksonville's played. At least I have. They played Cleveland the first game. Cleveland starters did not even play. And every snap, it reminded me a little bit of Joe Burrow. And please, Lord, don't let what happened to Joe Burrow last year happen to Trevor Lawrence, because I can't take that. I can't take that. But, I mean, the second he snapped the ball, somebody was in the backfield. Listen, that happens a lot of times with rookie quarterbacks. And to his credit, he made some great throws. He made one up the right sideline to Marvin Jones in that first preseason game against Cleveland. That was just beautiful. It was an amazing throw. It shows you the kind of talent this kid has. Okay, a week later on the national stage, ESPN, Monday night preseason football against the New Orleans Saints. There's that one play where everybody was freaking out. He could have had his season ended if he gotten hit the wrong way, but he runs the ball. There's a bunch of Saints players there, defensive players there. He doesn't slide, doesn't give himself up. He tries to muscle his way for extra yardage and just gets clobbered. While you want your quarterback to slide, well, at least you see he's got the toughness. That's not a problem. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are arguably, along with another team in their division, the worst team in the whole NFL. When I look at their schedule, and again, a couple weeks from now, I'll do my NFL kickoff show. Don't you worry about it. Don't you worry about it. I love doing it. But today, August of 26, 2021, what do I think about the Jags' schedule thus far? Week 1, they play the Houston Texans. I got them winning that game. I highly doubt Deshaun Watson's going to play. Aside from him, the Texans roster is a dumpster fire. They'll win that game. They'll find a way to win that game on the road. Denver's coming into town. That's an L. Cardinals are coming to Jacksonville. That's an L. They go to Cincinnati. Listen, that'll be a really interesting one because you got two young quarterbacks with not a ton of support in Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, respectively. That's a toss-up. Cincinnati's at home. I'm taking the Bengals. Titans coming to Jacksonville. Loss. Dolphins coming to Jacksonville. Loss. So what are we at now? 1-5? They go to Seattle. Big loss. 1-6. Buffalo comes to Jacksonville. Loss. 1-7. They go to Indianapolis. That's a loss. 1-8. 49ers come to Jacksonville. I mean, their schedule's brutal. That's a loss. 1-9. Falcons come in. Maybe the Falcons will screw it up. Who knows? They have a tendency to do that. But my gut tells me loss. So that's a 1-10. They go to the Rams. Loss. Titans again. Loss. Texans, I'll give it to them. They'll get a win. Their second win of the year. They go to Jets. They steal a game against the Jets. I'll give them that. And then they finish the year with 2 losses against New England and against Indianapolis. That is a 3-14 record. Trevor Lawrence, up until the national championship game against LSU a couple of years ago, had never lost a game since like his junior year of high school. I mean, it was insane. He's going to lose quite a few more games in Jacksonville in year 1 than he did his entire career at Clemson. And I don't know his record in high school. I'd say it was extraordinary. Combine his college and his high school and college career together, I would guarantee you he's going to have more losses in year 1 than he had all those years combined. That's 7 seasons of high school and of college. It is going to be a long year for Trevor Lawrence. Good news for Jacksonville fans. This is nothing new. being bad is nothing new. Not anything you have to adjust to. And the better news is that there's been a lot of quarterbacks. Think about Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning came into the NFL in 1998. Threw the record for the most interceptions any quarterback's ever had virtually no offensive line, was just terrible. The Colts went 3-13. Year 2, the Colts flipped their record to 13-3. You have that kind of generational talent in your building. That's the good news. The bad news is, I don't know if Urban's that guy. Now, I know he hasn't coached a game yet. Because of his college resume, I'll give him a shot. But there's been a lot of a lot of coaches who've been great in college that have pretty much failed in the NFL. Think about Steve Spurrier. Think about the greatest college football coach of all time, Nick Saban. Didn't work in Miami. Lane Kiffin didn't work in Oakland. Now, maybe he's the next Jimmy Johnson. Who knows? Remember, Jimmy Johnson with the Cowboys went 1-15 that first year in 1989. So we just got to see. But so far, not very good out of Jacksonville with Urban Meyer. And so that's what I'm saying. It is going to be a long year for Trevor Lawrence. Got a few comments here. I'll start with Barry. He says, Urban Meyer's Fred Sanford. At some point when things go bad, he will talk about a health scare. Yeah. Again, I can't speak to another person's health. Not going to do that. Obviously, he had his issues at Ohio State, but it was kind of ironic that after arguably his most controversial year as a head coach in 2018 at Ohio State, he stepped away. Now, I'm not going to be Mr. Conspiracy Theorist because I hate conspiracy theories and say, oh, Ohio State fired him behind closed doors, but he just said that he stepped down and Ohio State agreed to that. But it is ironic that was the case with Urban Meyer. Grady says, think of this. Blake Bortles has been to a conference championship in the 21st century, and neither Romo or Dak has. Bortles has been on like 4 teams since. Yep. That's what I'm saying, man. Grady also says, which rookie first-round QB should start for you and who shouldn't? To Trevor Law, should, Wilson, Fields, but I think you sit Jones and Lance. I'll give you a different answer as to who should. I'll go, well, I'll answer your question. You asked a question. You came on here and watched the show, Grady, so I will answer your question. Let me just put the question back up here. Trevor Lawrence is going to start, and he should. I think even today, he's probably, and Gardner Minshew is a good quarterback. He's like Baker Mayfield level. He's a nice quarterback. I think Trevor Lawrence is already better than him. He's that dude. Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is going to start. Thus far, what he's shown me in the preseason is he is ridiculously talented. Good arm, moves well. Good arm. Great arm, excuse me. I mean, he just lasered that thing in. My concern, though, for Zach Wilson, without question, he has the worst team in his own division. And I like Robert Saleh. But Robert Saleh is also the worst coach in the division. And it's Bill Belichick. His resume speaks for himself, for itself. Sean McDermott, look what he's done in Buffalo. Are you kidding me? 3 playoff appearances in 4 years. Got to an AFC championship game last year. And are, again, back in the Super Bowl picture. You look at Brian Flores as well. Wins 5 games in 2019. Doubles that to 10 wins in 2020. And with a back-and-forth quarterback battle between Fitzpatrick and Tua, they come on the doorstep of the playoffs. That man can coach. Not saying Robert Saleh can't, but that's my worry about Zach Wilson. Let's see. Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields should start. That's just me. You look at a guy who can move, which Andy Dalton really can't. You look at a guy who's got an excellent arm, accurate, made a great throw in that first preseason game against the Miami Dolphins. I think Justin Fields is going to start at some point this season. I think he's just simply too talented. I think he is ready now to start right now over Andy Dalton. I mean, I get Andy Dalton's the veteran. He's a good dude, good mentor for Justin Fields, but it's Fields' time. It's his turn. He should be QB1. And then Mac Jones. Barry says Mac Daddy Jones. That is his guy. He loves Mac Jones. We've actually got a bet about Mac. To be finalized, though. We gotta finish the details of that, but I'm not as high on Mac Jones as he is clearly. But Mac Jones, I'm gonna save my thoughts for that for my very next topic on the show. But it's looking good for Mac Jones right now. And Trey Lance, that's a tough one. To me, that's the toughest. Because Jimmy Garoppolo looked atrocious against the Chargers in that second preseason game on Sunday. Looked awful. He's like 1 for, what was he? 1 for 6, or 3 for 6, excuse me. 3 for 6, 15 yards and an interception. He was horrible. And Trey Lance came in, got off to a slow start, started 1 for 5, threw an interception, gained his composure, got himself together, threw 2 touchdown passes after that. I think because of the fact that he's only played 1 real game, a game that counts for North Dakota State. He's played 1 game that counts in the last year and a half plus. Now I think Trey Lance has the potential to have the best career of any quarterback in this draft because he's in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan on a team that's ready to win right now. And in the future, look at their young talent that they have. But right now, you go with Jimmy G. Right now. And it's only because Lance isn't quite ready to play. So that's my thoughts. Good question, Grady. Barry says, Lance isn't ready yet. They need to go with Jimmy. For right now, I agree with you. So to Mac Jones, let's talk about him for a minute. Rookie quarterback out of the University of Alabama. And I talked about Mac Jones and Cam Newton on Monday. And I talked about how Cam might have cost himself the last shot he had at being a starting quarterback in this league because he didn't get vaccinated, and now he's out. Now, according to Bill Belichick, he came back today. It was either came back today or came back tomorrow, but Cam is pretty much back. But in that time he was gone, Mac Jones was with the first team, got to spend more time with Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick. And according to the Patriots reporters in New England, Mac Jones looked amazing in their joint scrimmage against the New York Giants. To the point where after practice, Mac Jones was down on one knee, kind of, getting his breath. He's, kind of getting his breath a little bit. Bill Belichick goes over Bill Belichick and gives him a high five. How many people has Bill Belichick high-fived in his whole career in New England? Did he ever do that with Brady? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, he was with him for 20 years. Maybe at some point there was like one. But year one, rookie year, he gave Mac Jones a high five. Now, I see the comment here. Grady says, Cam week one. I'll go to your bigger comment, Grady, before this. He says, Cam week one, you turn to Mac if he doesn't work out. Now, Cam looked better in the preseason than Mac, and Mac looked good, but Cam was just on fire, albeit against the Philadelphia Eagles. But he was on fire. He was accurate, moved well, has some good velocity on his throws. Cam looked excellent. But because there wasn't there was a gap, but not a huge gap in between those two, now you give Mac Jones a shot. Now you give Mac Jones a shot to get that number one job. And that is those extra reps, those little things when you are battling somebody else who wants your job are critical. Now, I said, if this had never happened, I said, Cam, without a question, knows the offense better. He's in year two, moves better than Mac Jones. And frankly, this is make or break for Cam. It's not for Mac Jones. He's in his rookie year. He's got no pressure this year. Cam has all kinds of pressure. But I think with this now, I still think he should start, but we're not in the mind of Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. Do they say we can't trust him? He got COVID again? Who knows? To Grady's bigger comment, he's responding to Barry. He says, Barry, I respect Mac Jones, but I think you go with Cam. Cam has higher upside to what he could be, but it's easier to go with a rookie if a vet doesn't work out. From a Pats fan. Okay, I did not know you were a Patriots fan. So there you go. I mean, I get you definitely don't want to throw a rookie quarterback into the fire like that. For sure. I definitely understand that perspective without a question. And again, I would start Cam still. But what are the Patriots thinking right now? Who knows? John Rivera, shout out to him, Fan Perspective Podcast. Got to start Cam. Agreed. Barry says, Cam has zero margin for error, but his personality and the stupid things he does makes it hard for people to trust him or be in his corner all the time. That's the thing that I've always talked about with quarterbacks, is that maturity for that position is more important than any other position. Okay, listen, you don't want your players to have off the field stuff or get suspended or whatever. You don't want that. But your quarterback is an extension of your coach, essentially. Now, if you're a veteran guy, like say you are a a Ben Roethlisberger, right? You're a veteran. You've been in this league a while. Like, obviously, X's and O's wise, you're probably not that far behind Mike Tomlin because you played football for so long. But also holding guys accountable, right? Living a clean life, not getting into trouble. That it's more important for the quarterback than any other position. And so when you have Cam not getting into trouble with the law, obviously that's not even a problem here. But when you have he chooses not to get vaccinated, which all the indications in the New England media says that Mac has. And when Cam knows this is it, if Cam gets benched for Mac Jones, that is it for his career as a starter in this league. Does he retire? Don't know. Does he go elsewhere to be a backup? Maybe. But as a full-time starter, forget about it. It's over. Because that'll be 4 straight years of missing the playoffs and or struggling with injuries, with off-the-field stuff. That's just the reality of the situation. So if you had to ask me right now, 17 days away from the Patriots opener against the Miami Dolphins, who is going to be starting under center, I just put myself on the spot here. I will go with Cam, but Mac Jones will start by week 7. Let's do that. Week 6 or week 7. I'll say week 6. Mac Jones will start in week 6. That is my prediction. Hold me to it. I'll hold myself to it. That's my prediction. Cam is going to be the starter for the Patriots in week 1. Mac Jones will replace him in week 6. Because they're going to put Cam out there. Barry loves it. He loves it. But they're going to put Cam out there because they're like, okay, he's ready. He's been here before. Knows our system. Now, if he goes, if he goes like 5-0, 6-0, Mac's not starting. But I don't anticipate that happening. They got one guaranteed loss in week 4, and that's to Tom Brady. Tom Brady ain't losing to New England. He is not losing to the Patriots. This is probably going to be the only time he has the rest of his career to play them. He's not losing to them, especially in his old stomping grounds. But I think by week 6, because the coaches like Mac that much, they're going to go to him. I still don't think he's going to have a great career. I'm holding to it. Replacing Cam Newton. It's an accomplishment. I still don't think the Patriots are a playoff team because why did Tom Brady leave? 2 reasons. 1, he got sick of Belichick. 2, he had nobody that could separate. Jacoby Myers, Julian Edelman, who was old at the time, Gunnar Olszewski, James White, who was a running back, was his best receiver. I mean, it got kind of sad there at the end. He had nobody to throw to. And he goes to Tampa Bay where he has a coach that listens to him and he has receivers. And, what do you know? They're the Super Bowl champions and the favorites to do it again. Grady says, do you think the Pats cut Cam if they start Big Mac Jones? Literally, haha. No, I don't think they will. Would Cam request a trade? Would they trade him? Maybe see what they can get for him. I could see that scenario playing out. If there's a team that needs a quarterback, if there's, somebody say there's an injury, say, God forbid, a season-ending injury to a starting quarterback in this league, does a team try to make a deal for Cam? Sure. Maybe they do. But his days of starting in New England are over. The second Mac Jones, is the number one guy. That's just all there is to it. A couple more things to get into. Sony Michel. Sony Michel was traded the other day from the New England Patriots to the LA Rams. This, ladies and gentlemen, is huge for the LA Rams. Because as we all know, about a month ago, they lost their star back, Cam Akers, who had a great season last year, to an Achilles injury. And while I said in the show, Maybe there's guys that could go and get in free agency. They could go running back by committee because they have a great offensive line. You need to have a guy that can take some of the pressure off of Matthew Stafford, the way that Todd Gurley was for years with Jared Goff, the way Cam Akers was last year for Jared Goff. Right? Like, we think about the Rams and Sean McVay as this brilliant, young, new offensive mind, which he is, but the core of his offense, it's pound you in the mouth running the football. That's his identity as a head coach. For the record, that's pretty much the identity of every team in the NFC West. I mean, the Cardinals, while they don't have a great back, Kyler likes to run it a lot. Seattle, we all know they love to run it, the ball. That's the Pete Carroll, even with Russell Wilson, does that. San Francisco, great running game because Kyle Shanahan, he's I wouldn't say a run first guy, but then again, running is at the core of his offense. And so Grady asks, how far do you got the Rams going? Now that they have Sony Michel, now that they have not a true number one, but a guy you can give the ball 15 to 20 times a game. Now, he's not like a bell cow. He's not a Derrick Henry, 30 carries a game. He's not that. But he certainly is an upgrade over what they have. Over that other guy, Henderson, who's good, but not as good as this guy. So I am not going to reveal how far I have the Rams going. I'm going to save that for a couple weeks from now for my Carving It Up NFL kickoff show. Going to keep it quiet, hush hush for now. But I will throw this out. They are in the top 5, in my view, in the Super Bowl window. They're there, especially after making this move. I will leave it at that. John says, Rams are my favorite. Rams versus Bills Super Bowl. Boy, would that be something. You'd have the Rams will be in it. They'd be hosting the Super Bowl. It'd be the second year after 54 straight Super Bowls of no home team having home field advantage, so to speak, in the Super Bowl. You'd have 2 straight with Tampa last year and the Rams this year, and the Bills. The strides they've made over the last 3 years are just insane. And the strides Josh Allen, their franchise quarterback, has made has been insane. So, hey, I'd sign up for it. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. You got 2 guys very similar. Kind of Matt Stafford is kind of the older version in a way, just without the running ability and not quite as good of an arm. He's the older version in a way of Josh Allen. The issue is Matt Stafford, and we're going to find that out this year. Was it Detroit that was the problem, or was it Matt Stafford and Detroit? We know Detroit is just a mess. We know they screw up a lot of careers, but was it Stafford and Detroit, or was it just Detroit? That's going to be answered this year, because Matthew Stafford, he's got it all. Now he's got a true number 1 running back. He already had the offensive line. He's got the receivers. He definitely has the defense. Number 1 in the league last year. He's got the coach, Sean McVay. And he's got a good special teams. Special teams is important as well. Can win and lose you games. So it's put up or shut up time for Matthew Stafford. We've heard about the talent and how gifted he is. But for 12 years, he's been what I've heard one call him Stat Padford. He's put up big numbers. For what? A little Russell Westbrook-esque. You see the talent. You see the numbers, but what is it? It didn't win you games. It doesn't win you games. Numbers alone does not win you games. When do you put up those big numbers? Do you do it in meaningful games, or do you do it against garbage teams in December when you're already out of the playoffs? That's it in a nutshell. Grady says they're the 3rd best team in the NFC to me. I'm really interested to see how much better Stafford is than Goff because I liked Goff. Was surprised they dealt him. After what I heard coming out of the Rams, coming from sources in Los Angeles in December and January after they were eliminated by the Packers in the playoffs, I wasn't surprised they dealt him for the simple fact that you had heard there was some internal conflict between Goff and Sean McVay. You'd heard they butted heads a little bit. And I think even after one game, I think they lost to the 49ers at home. We all know the injuries the 49ers had last year. Nowhere near a playoff team. They lost to the 49ers at home. And Sean McVay kind of went off on Jared Goff in the locker room. So that kind of burnt that bridge. And that was the end of the Goff-McVay relationship as we knew and used to love it. And so they go and get Matt Stafford, who we all know is more talented than Jared Goff and frankly is better than Jared Goff. We'll see. We shall see. I'm excited to see the Rams this year. They are a must-see TV, like a lot of things in Los Angeles, like a lot of teams in Los Angeles. Speaking of LA teams, did you see the Dodgers and Padres game last night? Goodness, I did not stay up for that. I don't know if Ryan's still in here. I know he's a Dodgers fan, and at least he's on the West Coast, but still, that game ended at 4 a.m. Eastern time. Lasted over 5 hours. Jeez. No, thank you. No, thank you. Of course, then again, if he, at least he won. John says 5 primetime games. 5 primetime games for the Los Angeles Rams. They're a Super Bowl team. I mean, think about it last year. With Jared Goff, in the playoffs with Jared Goff, who already wasn't that good last season. You add to it, he broke his thumb on his throwing hand, and they beat Seattle mostly on running the ball and defense. But then they go to the road against the number 1 seed Packers, the MVP Aaron Rodgers, and they're in it in the fourth quarter until the Packers kind of pull away. But they gave Green Bay a fight. So we all know the Rams are a well-run organization. Stan Kroenke is an excellent owner. Sean McVay, we all know what he is as a head coach. He's excellent. They've drafted extremely well. They've won just about every trade they've made. They've given up a lot of draft picks, but they're like, listen, what draft pick are we going to give up that's better than Jalen Ramsey or Matt Stafford? Better chance than not that the guy you're getting in the trade is going to be better than the guy they draft in the trade, especially when you're trading to Jacksonville and Detroit. It's kind of the old saying. Like I've heard this before. I've seen the Patriots do this. I've seen my Golden State Warriors do this in the NBA, that well-run organizations, anytime they want to make a trade, they almost always do it with poorly run organizations. Like, look at the Warriors with the Minnesota Timberwolves. They traded D'Angelo Russell for Andrew Wiggins and some picks, and people are like, what are they doing? Why would they trade? A year later, they ended up getting Andrew Wiggins and 2 lottery picks. The Timberwolves got D'Angelo Russell, and that's it. New England makes a lot of deals with Buffalo, for years with Cleveland. Smart teams make deals with dumb teams because they know they can fleece them. It's that simple. Grady asked, will anyone pick up Gurley or Le'Veon Bell this season? I will tell you this. I think Le'Veon's career is done. After how he just trashed Andy Reid, who like everybody likes. Who doesn't like Andy Reid? Like, I mean, his players were just thrilled to win a Super Bowl for him. Nobody trashes Andy Reid, and Le'Veon Bell on social media did. Not to mention that after he signed that big contract with the Jets, he started to put on a little bit of weight. Wasn't working out as much. Didn't seem to have that same commitment that he did in Pittsburgh. Sat out a year in 2018. It told me a lot about Le'Veon Bell. Sometimes when you see players holding out for new contracts, you see like during training camp, you see their teammates kind of defending them and saying, hey, I'd move heaven and earth for this guy. When Aaron Rodgers held out from the Packers during OTAs, his left tackle, David Bakhtiari, one of the best left tackles in football, he said in a press conference, he said, I'd climb to the top of the nearest mountain to yell my support for Aaron Rodgers. When Le'Veon Bell held out 3 years ago, his Steelers teammates trashed him. And that's when you knew, like, okay, they could care less if this guy shows up. Like that told me a lot about Le'Veon. So guys already don't like him, and he can't really play anymore. So that's probably it for him. As far as Gurley, how healthy are his knees? It sucks because he had knee issues at Georgia in college. He's had knee issues with the Rams. The potential that this guy had. I mean, he had Hall of Fame talent. Injuries. It's just one of those kind of what could have been. Almost a Grant Hill-esque story with Todd Gurley. So I really hope Todd Gurley does get signed by somebody. But his arthritic knees, man, I'm worried about him. Grady Edwards says, can't believe they're both out of the league within 2 to 3 seasons at being the height of their powers. Yep. That's just crazy, man. The NFL, man, it is a year-to-year league. It is a what have you done for me lately league. That's how it works. And to see both of those guys out, you're right, man. It's nuts. It's nuts. Final topic of the day. We've got the Denver Broncos. Haven't talked a ton of Denver Broncos, but they also had a quarterback battle like the New England Patriots. The kid, Drew Lock, young and exciting and big arm, against Teddy Bridgewater, veteran on his 4th team. Who was going to win? And in the end, Vic Fangio announced, the head coach, Teddy Bridgewater is our guy. He is our starter in week 1. I don't want to poo-poo on Teddy because he's a good player. Right? Guys like him in the locker room. He's got good leadership intangibles. Teddy Bridgewater is a lot like Alex Smith in that he will not win you a game. Like, he won't make that play like that Mahomes play or that Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson play like, wow, that's special. But he also won't make the mistake that loses the game. Like, say, no disrespect, Phillip Rivers. Like, Phillip Rivers would occasionally throw that interception like, what are you doing, Phillip? Teddy Bridgewater doesn't do that. And that can win you games, but it can't get you to that next level. Nevertheless, Teddy Bridgewater is going to be around in the NFL for a long time. He's coachable, teammates like him, and obviously that factored into him winning the job in Denver. But it also says to me a lot about Drew Lock. Because with Drew Lock, it's been maturity issues that we've worried about. What I said about Cam Newton? You got to be able to trust this dude. And I can't trust Drew Lock. Yeah, he's got the arm. Yeah, Denver got hot at the end of 2019. Finished 7-9. But they beat some playoff teams that year. And, they had some momentum going into 2020. To where some were like, maybe Denver makes the playoffs this year, which they haven't done since they won Super Bowl 50 5.5 years ago. But he comes back in 2020. He gets hurt in the second game of the season, but even before that and after he came back from the injury, when he's on the same field with Pat Mahomes and Justin Herbert and even Derek Carr, there's a big gap, and it's not like Denver is devoid of talent. I mean, Noah Fant is one of the most underrated tight ends in the league. Their receiving core is crazy underrated. Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama, another Alabama receiver. That kid can play. Cortland Sutton, that kid can play. He just hasn't had a great quarterback yet. Offensive line is good. Right? Running game has come and gone, but once you solidify that, hey, you got yourself a complete offense once you do to get that franchise quarterback. And defensively, Von Miller on one end, Bradley Chubb, who's a beast on the other end. You added Patrick Surtain in the draft. Denver's got a good roster. But it kind of goes to that. If you don't have that franchise quarterback, there's only so far you can go. And for the Broncos, it's not even to the playoffs. So that's the thing is, Teddy probably deserved the job. Actually, Teddy did deserve the job. I mean, they obviously, he showed that in camp. He's not more talented than Drew Lock, but it goes to show you talent alone does not win. Because when you have the less talented guy who's mature, studies film more, doesn't make dumb mistakes on the field, doesn't throw stupid interceptions, he's going to win the job. And so I see Drew Lock as a guy that probably bounces around the league a little bit. As a backup, starts here and there, shows you flashes of greatness, but not on a consistent basis. So, congrats to Teddy Bridgewater. I still don't think the Broncos are a playoff team right now. They're missing that franchise quarterback. And for the record, I'm not a big Vic Fangio guy. I think he's an excellent defensive coordinator, just not a head coach. But that's kind of how I feel about the Broncos. So, with that, that is all the time we have for tonight's show. Be sure to catch Carving It Up tomorrow, as always, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. Be sure to also catch Carving It Up on the Carving It Up podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. If you're on YouTube right now, by the way, hit that big red subscribe button. Click the notification bell as well. Get notified every time we do go live or upload any content to the Carving It Up YouTube channel. And so be sure to also like, comment. Helps the channel grow exponentially. So hope everybody has a great evening. Stay safe out there. God bless you all.